We know that Leo was at the white parties. I see Leonardo Dicaprio, and he's on his knees, and he's at the side of my bed, and she's naked, and he's whispering in her ear, and everybody is watching her. He's in the corner of my bedroom with a camcorder recording the whole thing. I met this guy called Jeremy Sisto, and he was a very well-known actor today, and at the time a rising star in Hollywood. And I met him serendipitously, and we ended up becoming very fast friends. And he ended up introducing me to Jeff Goldblum. We played these acting games one night, and Jeff Goldblum remarked that I might have enough talent to make it in Hollywood. And so I took that as a sign to go.
How did that come about? Like, what did you do to push your way or wedge yourself into the industry and move up?
In my first week in landing in Hollywood, Jeremy says, let's go to a party. We walk into the house, and the first person I see leaning up against the wall is Shannon Doherty. She was the biggest star on television at the time. And she was leaning up against the wall with this sort of vixen-y look on her face. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I glanced down, and there was a circle of people, just dudes sitting around, one guy with his back against the wall, yakking away enthusiastically about something. And I was like, man, that guy looks really familiar. This looks like that kid Leonardo Dicaprio. But I was like, there's no way it could be him. Come on. I mean, yeah, clearly the person at this party is connected because they're Shannon Doherty, but Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, he's an Oscar-nominated actor. Maybe he's not the biggest star in the world, but it's not him, I thought, and I just kind of went into the party, deeper into the party, and mingling and seeing all these other familiar faces from TV and otherwise. But it turned out to be Leonardo DiCaprio. And so in my first week, there I am, right? I'm thrust in one of the most incredible, young Hollywood groups, in town. It was, led by Leonardo DiCaprio, but filled with, incredible faces and names, including Toby Mcguire, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to Hollywood and when it comes to like that whole process, there's I have met some of the most magnificent, incredible human beings I think you can meet. So more good people live in that industry than bad people. It's just that, unfortunately, in my experience, it's a corruption of power. Right?
If that is the case, then what happens? Because there are so many people that, it's funny. Take Will Smith. I thought Will Smith was just the coolest guy ever until the Oscars. I could not, I was just like, what just happened? And I thought, and then suddenly it comes out where there's all these people saying, oh yeah, he's fake. It's always been bullshit. He's an asshole. And it's like, whoa, totally fooled.
His story might be a great example. I mean, I don't know Will Smith, but I can say that it appears as though he's a great example of how like power, money, and fame can lead to a level of corruption that that can just corrupt the way your life is functioning. And in part, I think it sort of stems from the fact that people who are all the good people I talked about, there's this bad sort of thing that I'll call it a bad thing for the sake of this conversation. But there's this thing that there's complicity, right? So they are complicit in the empowerment of these people who become corrupt as they grow in their strength and in their fame and their delusion. Right? Because that's what I have experienced is that there's a separation between those who are delusional and those who aren't. And the ones who are delusional in Hollywood and who have power create so much damage that is felt by everybody. It's the same thing we see in any kind of circumstance where if there's just enough bad guys, right? They can create a lot of hell for all the good guys. And that's what happens. And that's what happens in Hollywood. And in part, it's because there's a level of complicity because we want to acquiesce to the power because the power will bestow upon us the fortune. So if I can smile and say yes, even though it should be an emphatic no, right? I might even get more favor. If I turn my eyes from what I'm seeing, maybe I get more favor. And so there's a complicity amongst the good and the medium good people in Hollywood that enables, right, emboldens these people to rise to this level of delusion and power that ripples down in ways that can create complete disruption and even destroy lives. And that's where I think people feast in the sort of, the gossipy sort of, or whatever, like the Hollywood rumor milling, right? They feast on that. But but Hollywood, all Hollywood needs to do to become a place that we can admire is that the good people need to start slapping the bad people out. They need to get them out. They need to say, people like DiCaprio, Maguire, these people need to be told, Diddy, right? They need to be held accountable, first of all, if they're criming. But if they're just being immoral or if they're bullying, if they're being bad people, they need to be corrected by the good people. but instead they're emboldened because they want to work with them, because they want to be benefited by the fame and fortune that has bestowed these people through their lives. It's frustrating for sure.
We talk a lot about crime on this show, but let's face it, some of the biggest crimes are committed by the government. You've heard the story before. Big Pharma swoops in to take control. Now, the FDA is trying to reclassify NMN, a natural compound in foods like broccoli and avocados, as a pharmaceutical drug. Why? Because NMN is so effective, they want to turn it into a pricey drug, keeping its health benefits out of the reach of most people. It's likely they're setting the stage for Big Pharma to profit, making it hard for us to access something that could dramatically support our life. The truth is, I lost over a decade in federal prison, so I want to stay as healthy as long as possible. I'm 55 years old, and I'm not ready to slow down. I stay active, eat right, and do all the things that we're supposed to do, but that only gets you so far. That's when I started looking for an NMN supplement, something backed by real science. After some research, I found Cell Being by Verso. It's loaded with NMN, resveratrol, and TMG. These ingredients work together and are proven to boost your NAD levels, which basically is the fuel that powers the trillions of cells in your body. I've been taking Cell Being for a while now, and I've noticed a huge change. I feel sharper, more energized, and just younger. While NMN was recognized as a safe supplement, the FDA made a decision that will make it harder for you and me to get this powerful compound unless we're willing to pay pharmaceutical prices. It makes you wonder who's really benefiting from this change. Don't wait until it's too late to support your body with something that could change the way you age. Click the link in the description box or head over to Verso, ver.so, and use the promo code Cox for 15% off your first order. Get it while you still can and take control of your health before the FDA and Big Pharma take it out of your hands.
What were some of the projects that eventually you get to Hollywood, you start working, you start meeting people. What are some of the projects that you were initially involved in?
Jeremy Sisto, who was like an angel to me, he introduced me to this dude, Artie Robb, who was friends with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they were making a short film called Last Respects, and there was a role I was perfect for. And so I got to audition for that, and that's kind of how I broke into that group that eventually led to, this entire saga and drama.
What happened with the project?
Oh, yeah. So I auditioned for it. I blew it. It was, it was the worst. I'm the worst auditioner, I think, ever. I'm just so bad. I freeze. I die. Like, I'm a decent talent. I'm not going to tout myself as something extraordinary, but I'm a decent talent. But fuck me if I can't audition for anybody. And so we got together. We did this table read for investors, and my mouth dried up. I just died on the spot. And I was working with Leonardo DiCaprio, like first thing, like second thing I did. And I'm at the table with Leonardo DiCaprio in front of all these investors. And I'm working with an Academy Award nominated actor. I've literally acted in 3 things in my entire existence. So I really felt like I was imposter syndrome just hit me as hard as it possibly could in that moment. And I blew it. But the project blew it. The project was poorly written by Artie Robb and Artie Glacken at the time. And so it was just a mess. And I overheard Leonardo DiCaprio talking to Artie Robb and saying, I can't do this movie, dude. I can't. It's bad. And I want to work with you. You're my buddy and I love you, but I can't make this. It's bad. And so Artie's shoulders dropped and, he was consumed by sadness, and Leo left, and I pounced. Instantly, I was like, I can write. I can fix your problems. I can fix all this. Let me help you. And I didn't say it quite like that, but that was the feeling. I was like, hey, man, I'm a writer. You need some help. And so Artie Robb said, well, let me read something. And at that time, I had been handwriting a screenplay in my bathroom, oddly enough. And I just found this real personal space. And I was and I was writing this really, really experimental kind of stuff. And so I handed him that and he read it. He thought it was really fun. He really loved my dialogue. He thought I was talented. And so he brought me on as a writer to try and fix the problems. And so I ended up writing that short with Artie Robb for DiCaprio to star in. And we probably put about 8 or 9 months of work into that. And when we finally presented it to Leo, he still passed. He was like, no, it's a no-go for me. I'm not going to do this. And I was devastated by that. But the producer we had on board, who was raising the money for the short, he pitched a project that he had started called the Saturday Night Club. And it was about a group of friends who on Saturday nights meet up at a diner and hang out every Saturday, and they go through their night of shenanigans, if you will. And so he had pitched that. He went and pitched that to Leo in Leo's bedroom after Leo had rejected this movie that we had written, and Leo liked the idea. And so Leo then we all kind of crowded around it, and there was some drama involved, but in the end, I was brought on board to co-write that with Artie Robb, and that's really when the big opportunity really opened up, and my life ultimately changed forever.
Well, what I mean, did you guys I don't reckon, what was that the ultimate name of it? Because I don't recognize, was that ever made?
No, it wasn't. So it became the movie that is now known as Don's Plum. Have you heard of that?
No.
No? Impossible.
Don's Plum.
No, you haven't heard of Don's Plum because Leonardo DiCaprio has been keeping it suppressed for decades.
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio had that film banished from the United States and Canada. That has been my plight. That has been my fight. And we'll get into that more. But so to shorten the story up a little bit, to kind of get into more of some of the juicy stuff, is that, we ended up making the movie. We ended up shooting 3 days in July of 1995 with a cast to die for. That included Leonardo DiCaprio, Toby Mcguire, Kevin Connolly. Do you know who that is?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Kevin Connolly's from Entourage, right? Is that
Entourage? Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I met him. I had dinner with. Well, no, we had drinks before dinner anyway. But yeah, I met him. He tried to get me to sign up for his. He's got kind of like a podcast, like a production company that does podcasts, and he's trying to get me to do it.
To bring your podcast over to his brand.
Yeah, he was gonna send me all the. Listen, I'm fresh out of prison, and I met him in Puerto Rico. I went to go meet another producer in Puerto Rico, and while I'm there, he shows up, and so he hears my story real quick. I give him a quick 20-minute, 30-minute, pitch on my story, because the producer said, Kevin, you got to hear this. And so I ramble through. Boom, just got out of prison, only a couple months. I'd flown to Puerto Rico to meet with some entrepreneurs that wanted me to come to lunch and talk with them there was like 8 of them, I think. And just, they paid me a couple thousand.
How the fuck did you do all this? How did this happen for you? It's wild.
Well, no, I was in the halfway house, and I was trying to figure out how to put together a true crime podcast, because I was in prison and I'd written all these true crime stories.
Right. I saw that in your episode. I saw that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was in the halfway house, I called a buddy. A buddy of mine knew a guy named Danny Jones, and I talked to Danny about hey, how does YouTube work? I don't understand. How do you get paid? What kind of cameras? And so after talking to him a few times, he goes, will you come on my podcast, tell your story, see if anybody's interested? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I went and I talked for 2 hours. It got over 2 million views. And in the process, I got producers, started reaching out to me, and an entrepreneur group.
That's right. I remember this now.
People that want speaking, you to be like a keynote speaker. Somebody reached out and said, hey man, next week we're having this thing in Puerto Rico. We'd like to fly you in to have lunch. And they gave me a couple thousand to fly in. I think it was like 1,800 to fly in. And while I flew in, had lunch with them, they paid me. That night, I also happened to have a friend that knew a producer that wanted to meet me, and she happened to be in Puerto Rico. So it was like, oh, this is perfect. So I went to San Juan, met with her, and when I'm talking to her, Kevin Connolly shows up. And I was like,
Yeah, that's got to be a shock, right?
Yeah, I was so, and I'd never really, had only watched a few Entourages. But, I recognized him. He sat down and he was like, oh, she's like, he wants to start a podcast. I want to talk to him about some of his stories. And so we're talking. And as we're talking, he says, man, I own a podcast production company. Like you should, I can hook you up. I can send you the equipment. I can this, like that. And I was like, but I just didn't get a great feeling from him, and he was very pushy. I don't know anything, so I'm not going to jump right in. Right. So instead of kind of treating me with kid gloves, he was just like, bro, you got to do this. He's just pushy, just bad salesman.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think a lot of people, I think he has a sense of entitlement. I mean, this is me, but like, hey, I'm E, You don't say no to me. Why would you say no to me? Who the fuck are you
Right.
going to go with? Somebody who's not you?
Well, listen, there was even a time when he was basically, I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of want to, I want to kind of have like a good quality production. He was just talking about doing audio. I was
Right.
like, no, I want to do not just audio. I want to do audio and video. Oh, you don't even need that. And it was just like, you don't even need that. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I like that aspect of it because, I like looking at the person. I like that kind of that interaction. You can see that on film. And so I'm trying to explain it. He's very dismissive. And then he said, and he was like, bro, I got a chick right now doing true crime, making $40,000 a month. He goes, I mean, honestly, I'm trying to help you out here. He's like, you just got out of prison. And I remember thinking, we're done talking.
Like you.
Yeah, I was like,
Fuck you.
I was thinking to myself, so what? I'm on the bottom rung. You're throwing me a crumb and I'm supposed to jump on like, hey, bro, I'm perfect. And I think I even told him, dude, I hate to say this, but I'm sleeping in someone's spare room right now in a rooming house. I was like, and I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm not in a hurry to do anything.
Fuck you, dude.
And I think he just didn't understand that.
Yeah.
So trust me, sleeping in that spare room was a huge step up from prison. And I'm thrilled.
For sure.
Driving a car that can barely get me to work and back. Thrilled. So we were, and hey, honestly, he may have been doing me a favor. But he didn't come off. Didn't come off well to me. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. That's a cool story. And it's interesting because like, it's interesting to hear that about him. I can totally see that. I mean, I knew him very well. I consider us close friends at the time. Back in the
He
day.
might be a great guy.
Yeah, he was wonderful. I mean, I loved him until then he became not such a good guy. And we'll talk about that as we go on. But so yeah, the film was,
I still have his phone number. I was going to say, I don't want to show it, but I still have his phone number he gave me his phone number.
Really?
A 310 number. It was his mobile number. I don't think I've ever texted him.
Kevin's in the 310.
Yeah.
So so the film had all these really big names in it. And what we did was there's a UK filmmaker that inspired the out of us called Mike Lee. He made a movie called Naked. And if you haven't seen it, man, just watch it. It's just genius. And what was so inspiring about this guy and it was his approach. He did everything improvisationally, and we loved that. And when David pitched this project to Leo, he only had 10 pages or so of a screenplay. So there was nothing there. And we were all very excited about improv because we had all seen Naked and other Mike Lee films. Well, I think there was only one other at the time, actually. But we'd seen both Life is Sweet and Naked together, actually, and we loved it. It blew our minds, just creatively. And so it was like a perfect fit when David pitched this opportunity because it was a chance to make the movie improvisationally. And when you do that, when you take that kind of a deep dive, which very few people, if anybody, was doing in America at the time, you kind of jumping into a big sort of like, you kind of like, it's an empty-handed like leap into the void. You really don't know what's going to come out of this situation because it's improvisation. So what we did is we wrote this project really creatively. We actually did it on index cards, and then we created each of the characters and all their scenarios, and we stacked these index cards in front of them, and we rehearsed for several weeks prior to shooting, and then we assembled 3 Super 16 millimeter cameras and a massive crew, and we shot for 3 days. And it was just a miracle. I mean, it was one of the most magical things ever. Don's Plum was accepted into Berlin Film Festival. It was accepted into the Sundance Film Festival. It was a film that was anticipated to go out and do, the film Kids? It's okay if you don't. It was a very popular film in the early 90s or mid 90s that came out, a very like visceral movie. Very raw, and it did like $30 million in box office. And back then, that was a big deal, especially since it had $1 million budget.
Yeah,
or maybe it was a very small budget. My budget was much smaller; it was like $100,000. But my film was, the belief was that Don's Plum was going to do those kinds of numbers. So we shot in 3 days, 75% of a feature film in 3 days.
Okay.
It's the most unheard of thing. I mean, it's practically a miracle. And when you watch the film, it's engaging. It's a deeply engaging movie. If you see it all the way to the end, most people don't watch it to the end, particularly those who might complain about it in some way. But if you watch the movie to the end, it's artistically wonderful. Like it's an art house film. It's integrity. It's got, loads of really visceral, sort of experimental filmmaking and storytelling going on in the 90s. It's super raw. It's gritty. It kind of makes you feel icky in the end, but it's a substantial achievement in its scope, right? It's not Titanic, right? We didn't have $200 million to make our movie. We made our movie with less than $100,000, and what we accomplished was extraordinary. So there was tension around the film immediately with Leo, because Leo was a rising star and he didn't and couldn't afford to have a really bad movie, right? And that makes sense. And so what we did is we assured Leo that we would never release a bad movie. In fact, we would not release a movie that he didn't approve of. That was our deal. And he was cool with that. And so we got to cutting it after this incredibly, almost spiritual weekend of shooting. And 6 months later, we finally raised enough money to cut it. We were broke, so we had to sit and wait for months before we could even get to the footage. But when we finally did, everything that we had thought happened did. There was just this incredible movie unfolding. We shot for 3 more days to get some pickups and to reshoot the opening, because everything that we shot for the opening failed. So we had to reshoot all of that, and then we had to get some pickups as well. And then in the summer of 1996 at MGM Studios, we screened the movie for Leonardo Dicaprio and about 100 other people, maybe a little more than that, including all of our friends, cast and crew, and some industry insiders like distributors and that sort of thing, just to get people, giving it people, sample, the interest out there possibly. And it was just a massive success. Leo jumping up and down, loving it. Blew his mind. Didn't see it coming. Leo was like, I did not see this coming. And then he sent us to his agents. We screened it for them. They approved the movie. And not only did they approve the movie, it's CAA. And not only did they approve the movie, but they signed the director. And they took on the movie as Manny Nunez, who repped producers' projects, took on Don's Plum. And Don's Plum was ready to poised to go to the moon. And at that point, we had Harvey Weinstein was making offers. Who obviously this his crimes aside, at the time he was the most prolifically important person in independent film, and he was making an offer on our movie. And he was like, he launched Tarantino. Obviously he's a scum of the earth.
Yeah, but at the time,
what he was doing. Say again, sorry.
At the time, that wasn't an issue. He was, active in his, in his crimes at the time. At the time, he was just a big shot offering money. So,
yeah.
So it hit box off? I'm assuming something went wrong.
Something went really wrong, man. Yeah, Toby Mcguire shows up. First of all, to set this up a little bit, when Toby and I worked together on Don's Plum, Toby was nobody.
Right.
Okay, he was nobody. Absolutely.
This is before Spider-Man.
Right. Far before. Yeah. It was before Cider House Rules. It was before Ice Storm, if you know what that movie is. And that's the movie that really got him going.
Was and what was the horse one? There was the one with the horse.
Yeah. Seabiscuit. That came later, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Horse
that was after Spider-Man, right?
It was. Yeah. It was him, attempting to gain credibility as, I guess, a talent. But in any case, he was absolutely nobody. Well, by the time that we had finished shooting and started to cut, he had this short Toby did called The Duke of Groove that got nominated for an Oscar. And all of a sudden, everybody's calling Toby's number, right? And he brought on this big, huge manager. And the next thing you know, Toby's star is starting to rise, and he lands Ang Lee's Ice Storm. And Ang Lee was this big up and coming, not even up and coming. He directed this movie called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, brilliant Chinese film. And he became this beautiful art house director and one of the most, sort of sought after directors for movie stars to work with in Hollywood. Toby lands the Ice Storm, massive deal. Toby's star starts to rise. All the while, Don's Plum is coming into its form. We're cutting it together. It's looking amazing. More people, more money coming on board. There's excitement around it and all this while Toby's star is rising. We finally, as I said, we screened it for Leo, right? Toby wasn't available because he was shooting the Ice Storm at the time. So he couldn't actually come and see the movie when everybody else did. He did get a sneak peek at 72 minutes of the film before he went to Ice Storm, something we did for him as a favor because he was not going to be available to see the film with everybody else when we did, the cast and crew screening for Leo. So then Leo loves the film. He approves the film. Toby returns from Ice Storm. And I'm sitting at home with Artie Robb, the director. We're roommates. We're just hanging out. And all of a sudden we get this call and Toby wants to talk to us. He's like, I got to talk to you. I got a problem. I got problems. I got to talk to you. What the fuck is your problem? Now, at the time, we have offers from Miramax and several other distributors, including the same distributor that distributed Kids, the movie they made for $1 million and did $30 million in the box office and launched careers galore, right? We're in business. CAA, as a matter of fact, told us that Sundance is a done deal. We're in Sundance. So we have Sundance, we have Miramax and other distributors. We have a massive Japanese distributor who's ready to throw significant 7-figure deal on the table for the Japanese rights. I'm in business, dude. Like, I'm about to hit big. I went from drinking water for food to getting picked up in limousines because people want to buy my shit. It was an incredible time. It was a heady time, to be sure. We get a call. Toby wants to come over. He's got a problem. Ding dong. Doorbell rings. There's Toby. He's got a Ralph's grocery store bag in his hand. He comes in and he gives us a hug and he walks in. He's got to cook us dinner. And we're like, okay. And he pulls out a box of macaroni and cheese. He says, let's have dinner. I'm going to make you dinner. Mac and cheese and tofu wieners. Extraordinary. He says he's got a bone to pick. He says he's got problems. He has issues with the film. And there's a tension, there's an anger. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Just really kind of out of left field. There was tension around the film and all that described well inside the book. Nothing we need to get into here, but the tensions in him were far exceeding anything that we'd run into. And all that, by the way, that previous tension that I was talking about was all about the skepticism around whether or not the film was any good. And that really just like fell to the wayside once everyone saw it, which is something I assured everybody during the tense times. I was like, just let us finish the movie. And when you see the movie, it'll be what it is. But we think it's powerful. We think it's special. And we hope you feel the same way. And that's how I kind of always that was my party line, if you will, to everyone throughout, the process of cutting the film and until we premiered it for everybody. Toby starts screaming at us. I want Don's Plum to burn. Fucking his veins just out like cords on his neck, screaming in our faces. What the fuck is wrong with you? Losing his mind. Artie's like, you need to get the fuck out of my house. You got to get the out of here, dude. I'm not doing this shit. I calm everything down because I'm that guy, right? I'm a bit of a mark. I'm a bit of a mark because I'm that guy who wants to please. I was a heavily abused kid. And I think that the result of that, and this is all self-diagnosis, this hasn't been professionally diagnosed, but I feel like, my father was physically abusive, very physically abusive. And so I was always like trying to please him, trying to quell that anger that I knew was going to bring wrath to me and pain to me that was practically unbearable. And so when Toby erupted in a similar way to the way my dad might, it's the exact same thing. I was like, let me help you. I can make this better. We can talk this through. This doesn't have to become violent, right? And that's what's going on. Artie Robb's like, fuck you, I'm going to bed. But not me. I'm like, I got to stay with Toby and I got to make him feel better. It turned into like a 12-hour interrogation by Toby Mcguire. I mean, I'm literally falling asleep. He's waking me up. I want answers, like crazy shit. We moved buildings. We were in my apartment. And then he was like, let's go to Bob Villard's, this place in which he was living while he was in from town and in between residences. So we go to this guy, Bob Villard's house. And at that time, one of the things that Toby attributes to his success is Alcoholics Anonymous. So we're at his house and he's going through this interrogation and it's just horrible. And then he goes through this process of telling me what's changed his life and why he's so successful now. And it was Alcoholics Anonymous. And he goes into this like this thing about how I'm an alcoholic. He's like, you're an alcoholic, Dale, and we can help you. He's like this deconstructing me. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. And he's like pointing out like some of the shitty things I did when I was drunk because I did make mistakes. I'm a flawed guy, but alcoholic I was not. Asshole, yeah, I did some asshole things, but alcoholic, no. But he's breaking me down, kind of deconstructing me. He wants to know what the worst thing that happened during Don's Plum was. That was his obsession. I want to know. This isn't squeaky clean. You guys did something. Don't tell me there wasn't something said. You guys did something shady. I was like, there's nothing there. And he just kept pursuing this. And this is what he kept waking me up from when I would nod out from being up all night. So I'm going to do a little flashback now, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Previous to all of this, Leonardo DiCaprio, we had set up the screening at MGM for Leonardo DiCaprio. And Leo had agreed to come, and we had this whole thing arranged that literally involved hundreds of people, or a couple hundred people probably, right? And we get this call from Leo, and he's like, dude, I'm sorry, bro. I can't make the screening. What? 2 days before. What the fuck do you mean? You can't make the screening. This whole thing's for you. I'm sorry, bro. It's Juliette Lewis's birthday, and I forgot, and I'm flying to Las Vegas. I'll be in Vegas. I can't make it. But set it up for next week, and or the week after, the following week, because I'm still in town. He was on hiatus from, I don't know what movie. But he was like, I'm still in town for another week, so we'll do it then. It was a disaster for us. It was horrible. It's the worst thing that happened. Well, our executive producer had arranged for a small announcement in Variety announcing the film so that distributors would know that it exists, so that when he goes and starts calling them, they would be like, oh yeah, I saw it in the trades. And that would give us a bit of an edge to try and get good money, right? So he made this announcement in Variety, and it hit before Leonardo DiCaprio saw the movie. Before the screening on Friday morning, or Friday noon is when the Variety hit the stands, it was on the shelf and the article was in it. And Leo exploded with anger because he had not yet approved the movie. So he went ape shit. Like, we got this vicious, like, made me shake voicemail from him. I'm mad. I'm not going to the party. I'll be at the screening. It's going to be at the screening. So that's how we got Leo to the screening, is we fucked up and put an ad, basically an announcement in the trades. It got him furious. So he changed his plans and he came to the screening. It was actually a good thing for us because he ended up seeing the movie, loving it, and everything worked out for us in the long run. And we were able to easily apologize for that mistake, right? Because it was just a small announcement.
Yeah.
Deal.
It was already in the works.
Yeah, we fucked up. We shouldn't have done that. Apologies. Won't do that again. Thank you. That was the end of it, as far as I was concerned. And it should have been for there was nothing salacious, there was no like, oh, it was, just a small announcement. These guys made a movie. That's all it says, essentially. Well, so Toby Mcguire knows about this and this Variety article tension. So in this all-night session, Toby's like, what about the Variety article? And I was like, well, actually, there was one thing with that. And I'm tired. And I've just been browbeated and interrogated. And when you read it in the book and you see the cool thing about the book is that I put you in it. It's not like a book where I'm sitting there telling the story in the way that I'm telling you today. It's actually, you're in the seat. You're there. It's live. It's like, it's cool that way. He wakes. So I'm like, well, there was one thing. Yeah, there was one thing. And he was like, well, what was it? I was like, when Leo was all pissed off, he was like, what's the one thing? You had to have heard something. He said, that's what triggered me. I was like, yeah, I did hear one thing. And he's like, what was that? I was like, well, when Leo was freaking out about the Variety article, Jerry Metters, who put the article in and who was the executive producer of our film, he got angry about the way that Leo was behaving about the whole thing, because he was freaking out about it. And he was like, and he said something like, well, if he's angry about us making an announcement, at least he knows we have a voice in the press. This is what he said in our little meeting. We brushed it off as stupid, right? Like, RD was like, Jerry, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm sure Leo's shaking in his boots right now. Because it was a stupid thing to say, but it actually wasn't a stupid thing to say. Let me stand corrected, because Jerry Metters doesn't say anything stupid, in my opinion. He's actually he's a bona fide, brilliant executive in Hollywood. What he did was he had a reaction. Leonardo DiCaprio was threatening all this shit about our movie and being a jerk off over a stupid little article. And to him, it was this puny thing. And he was like, grow up. At least, we have a voice in the press, kind of like you in that way. Yeah. Right. So, I said to Toby, yeah, Jerry said that. And I thought it was really stupid. He went nuts. Toby went nuts. That's it. He said, you fuckers, you're going to pit the press against Leo. He blew the whole thing up. I'm pitting the press against Leo. We're going to try to ruin Leo's career over Don's Plum. He just destroyed everything. Now, prior to him freaking out at all this stuff, I had agreed to go to AA because he kept coercing me into it. He's like, just go to AA. Just come to this meeting. Do it for me. Support me. And so I said, okay, I agreed to go. So he blows up this whole thing, accuses me of admitting to us pitting the press against Leonardo DiCaprio. And when you put this into perspective, I had everything at this point. Like I was about to be made. Like it was done. It was all about whether or not what we were going to do with it afterward. There was no question about whether it was going to happen. Right. I had succeeded. We had beaten all the odds. So Toby lost his mind, and he again called screaming, "You're trying to f- over my friend. We're meeting with Leo tonight." They called a meeting. I did not sleep until through the whole day.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. Whether you're having trouble falling asleep, you're waking up sweating in the middle of the night, or all of the above, that's where GhostBed can help. As the makers of the coolest beds in the world, GhostBed is your go-to for cooling mattresses, cooling pillows, and cooling bedding. From their signature Ghost Ice fabric to patented technology that adjusts to your body's temperature, every GhostBed mattress is designed with cooling in mind. So whether you want a plusher mattress that cushions your shoulders and hips, or a firm option with exceptional support, your GhostBed will keep you cool and comfortable all night long. When you purchase a GhostBed mattress, your comfort is guaranteed. You can try out your mattress for 101 nights, risk-free, to make sure it's the right fit for you. Plus, they offer free shipping, and most items are shipped within 24 hours. If you're not sure which ghost bed is right for you, check out their mattress quiz. You'll answer a few questions and get a personalized recommendation. Even better, our listeners can get 50% off site-wide for a limited time. Just visit ghostbed.com/Cox and use the code COX at checkout. Again, that's ghostbed.com/Cox with the code COX at the checkout to save a whopping 50% off site-wide.
This all happens in 24 hours, dude. 24 hours. My life was destroyed. My art was taken from me. My friends were gone. I was ostracized from the industry in one single night. That evening, so Leo's agents called us between Toby dropping me off and us meeting with Leo later that night at Kevin Connolly's house. And Kevin Connolly recorded the whole night. So between that time, Leo's agent called us and said, "What the f*** happened?" And Leo's agent was like, "This is going to blow over. You guys are just having a little fucking friend fight. It's going to be fine." I knew different. I knew that Toby was after something more than I didn't realize at the time what was going on. I thought I needed to soothe his.
I don't either. I don't understand what he was after either. Like, I don't understand why being in kind of an independent film harms you when it was made a few years ago, and now maybe you're Spider-Man, but so what? You know, everybody starts somewhere, and it's an independent film, and it's decent. What's the problem?
Well, it's a very revealing movie, right? It's entirely improvised. There was a scene in the movie that he became very sensitive about when I described it to him before he had actually seen it, Toby. And the scene is that they're sitting around, and it's in the improv it's a improv, and the objective was, one of the things that I thought we dealt with growing up in the 80s and 90s was like shame around things, like shame around things, right?
Right.
And we wanted to address that a little bit. And so we did this thing called improv, where people talk about beating off. And during this improv, Toby's character, Ian, confesses to fingering his butthole when he beats off. And it's just like Leo's reaction was amazing. Like, he was just like, oh, you know, like, he just this big homophobic, he was just repulsed by it. And it was awesome. The whole thing was captured beautifully on these 3 cameras. And it's just this great exchange. And Toby's talking about how with the finger up your ass is way more fun.
Okay.
And so when I told Toby that it was a really, really great moment in the movie. It was really honest. It was really, it was brave, you know, like to do in front of girls at a table. And, I don't know, man. I loved it. I thought it was a really special moment in the movie, actually. And it cut together beautifully. Leo's, strong reaction to it was really important. And there's just the whole thing was really on theme. You know what I mean? It was perfect, actually. And it was also a moment that I thought showed some of the best acting coming out of Toby Mcguire in the movie. When I told him, because he asked me about how the movie was going at one point when we were hanging out, and I told him there was a scene that I felt was particularly vulnerable and special. He asked me to describe the scene for him. I did. He was mortified. He was like, "Fuck." I was like, "I don't really do that." I was like, "I don't think anyone cares, dude." Yeah, no, but I'm just saying I don't. I was like, "Okay."
You're an actor. You're you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so what? You're playing a part. I don't think anybody. I believe it or not, I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio drowned during Titanic. I feel like I've seen it then. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even think the water was that cold.
I know. And yeah, exactly. And I think he could have fit on that door that the chick was on. I think it was,
Yeah, like move over, man.
I'm assuming, because I'm a fairly sharp guy, that maybe that was just kind of in the script and it was just kind of, you playing the character and you were told to kind of do. Even if you ad-libbed it, it was like, yeah, but this is where we're going. You're not getting on that raft. You're not getting on that door. So, anyway, so go ahead. So is this the one scene that he's upset about, or in general, he doesn't want to be painted in a bad light?
Right. I think it was less about him being painted in a bad light and just the whole, like the film as a whole. The film is raw, dude. It's raw, right? And it's real. And that was the purpose of it.
Yeah.
And so I think the problem was that it made him, I think he was concerned that it would seem more like it was real and less about him acting. And so that meant then that it was representative of him as a person. And it shouldn't have been, right? Like, cause it was an improv, and not only was it an improv, but it was written, and, we have all this stuff we've written and we have the rehearsals on tapes, and, we know what it was. We all know that it was all fiction. People are genuinely believe that what they're watching is real.
Right.
It's genuinely not real.
Right.
It was all written, all the garbage stories, they're all written. And there's nothing real going on. But we had one of the best casts ever assembled in an independent film. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. It starts with Leonardo DiCaprio. So let's just go there, right? And then trickle down. We had an extraordinary cast. You know who Jenny Lewis is?
No, but that doesn't mean anything because I don't know who anybody is.
That's okay. I'm just, it's worth asking. Yeah. She is an independent musician of great fame from Rilo Kiley. And she's just an absolute fierce talent. And she plays one of the female leads in this. And I mean, her performance is breathtaking in terms of like how wonderful it is, toe to toe with DiCaprio. Incredible work. We had an incredible cast. We had something really, really, really special, and it comes through. It affects you viscerally. When we were screening this movie, we were testing it before we even screened for DiCaprio. We did some tests. People were coming out of there just shaken by it, because it's not because it's just because it makes you realize like just what we were up against as kids in the 90s, as young people coming into our moment. So it's just a viscerally real movie. And I think he was very afraid that was going to rub off. And I go into extreme, not extreme. I present a theory in the book that I think is a very plausible theory about why Toby Mcguire lost his mind, because it is a mystery, just to be sure. When I talk about true crime, it's a mystery why he did this. It happened, but here's what became very real. At first I was like, it's because he was jealous. At first I was like, because he was always talking about how he was next in line from Leo. Did you know that he and Leo were both up for, do you know what This Boy's Life is?
Yeah.
Did you know they were both up for it?
No, I did not.
Yeah, they were both competing for that part. And Leo beat him. They've been best friends. They were friends before that, and they've been best friends ever since. And I am certain that Toby to this day carries that around.
I mean, my God, if you're second best to DiCaprio, I mean, that's a pretty. I think most people would cut their left arm off to be in that spot. Like, what do you?
Well, it changed Leo's life in ways that Leo worked with Robert De Niro at the height of De Niro's abilities, really, and it's certainly at one of the peaks of his career, De Niro's. You got to work with Alan Barkin. When you're in Hollywood and you're a teenager and you're trying to break in and you get that's just as big as it gets, dude. There's nothing bigger. And being second is horrible, because being second could mean that you never work, because being second means you didn't get the job. And that job changed Leonardo DiCaprio's life. He to this day talks about how it changed his life, because it was the first time that people saw this kid really act. And he was brilliant.
But Toby went on to do great things. So
right, but
destroy his life.
Well, no, but I think there was a rivalry immediately.
Right. There's a rivalry, but that justifies going around crushing everybody else that you work with, or all these people that have put all this time and energy.
No, not at all. But it does it for me, at least. It establishes that there might be something going on in terms of a competitive nature for this guy, that he might have something fiercely competitive about him, that there's something he wants to prove. Like and I say that because of my experience with him, right? He's said repeatedly, I'm going to be bigger than Leo. He said repeatedly, I'm going to make more money. Not only am I going to make more money than Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm going to be the highest paid actor in Hollywood. These are things he said repeatedly, and I never believed a word of it. And the reason is because I thought I couldn't imagine that his face would ever become a star, ever. Like, his talent is fine. That's the other thing. I never thought he was that great of an actor. It's an opinion. Others may, have a different opinion, but I just never thought he was very strong, and I still don't think that about him. I haven't seen all of his work, but I've seen enough and worked with him, and I just think he's okay. So that he was saying these things about his future, to me, was almost comical. But his ambition and his ability to pursue things is, I think, probably at the highest level. I think he's exceedingly good at getting what he wants, despite obstacles, even, a average face, an irritating voice, and a mediocre talent. And with those things,
don't hold back.
He built an empire. Yeah, well, it's how I feel. It's definitely my opinion, and I had that opinion of him when I was his friend. Okay. So it's just literally, I mean, that's never not. The first time I met him, I thought he looked like JoJo the dog face boy, because he just had the shaggy hair. He had this tufted thing, and he just looked awful to me. And I was like, this is Hollywood? Fuck, I might make it around here. It was like one of those if he can, I can situations. So I think that what happened was that Toby saw an opportunity to be something like a all-American kid, the nerdy kid. I actually get into a theory that I believe that Spider-Man was introduced to Toby Mcguire in 1995, 1996, at the same time of Don's Plum, through Leo, because of a James Cameron connection. And that's sort of where the book kind of focuses in terms of like a motivation for Toby to do what he did. But what he did was he took a torch and he lit Don's Plum and he burned it to the ground in one single night. We all met at Kevin Connolly's. It's a night that RD and I refer to as the bludgeoning, the verbal bashing. It was just pure abuse. And it was recorded by Kevin Connolly, who says later that recording was stolen. Just really, when the litigation happened and we said produce, it got stolen.
Right.
Because people break into houses, risk incarceration, and take microcassettes and run out of the house with it. It's the stupidest thing I've heard in my life. But in any case, throughout that entire night, they just verbally bludgeoned us, told us that they were going to destroy us, kicked us out of the house broken and obliterated. And then from that day forward, my life went completely to hell, and I lost everything. And when I say everything, I mean, I still don't even talk to my family. So, or some of them. So, I lost my friends. I lost my money. I lost my future. I lost my dream. I lost my right to pursue my dream because I got blacklisted by Toby Mcguire, by Leonardo Dicaprio. That then, this all, when the shit hit the fan, it was 1996. The dispute broke out in the late summer 96. And we settled in 99 after Leonardo DiCaprio had become the biggest star in the world. So it was prior to Titanic, as you know, and as we established. But it wasn't until Titanic that we were even able to get a lawyer, because we didn't have any money, and no lawyer was going to take our case on a contingency basis because Leo wasn't a star. He was worth a couple $1 million. They were like, we're not getting anything out of this fucking guy. When it became Titanic, we were getting phone calls from the biggest lawyers in town.
So what? So all right. So they shut the whole thing down. DiCaprio has the ability to say, I'm not happy with the film. Is that what happens?
Well, what happened was he broke a law. He interfered with our prospective economic advantage, right? And he started calling up distributors and telling them that if they worked with us, they would never work with Leonardo DiCaprio. And so Miramax went away, Trimark went away, First Look went away, CAA went away, all of our friends went away, everybody went away. Literally within 7 days of Toby Mcguire coming in and torching everything, every single opportunity, every single relationship, that industry relationship gone, every single thing. We had a 3-picture deal from Jersey Films, which was Danny DeVito's company. So they called us in after seeing Don's Plum and gave us 3-picture, $3 million deal. So we went from $100,000 to make our first movie. We had $1 million budgets for 3 movies, do whatever you want, be artists. Like the dream come true, my friend. Like everything I've ever wanted. I didn't ever want to be a commercial guy. I never wanted that for me ever in my life unless I was just getting paid as an actor. But as an artist, as a writer, as a director, as a producer, for me, it's all art house or nothing. It's just where I live. It's where I breathe. It's where I fucking thrive. It's my contribution. It's the thing I can do best. So it's where I want to be. 3-picture deal from Jersey Films is as good as life could ever be. And Toby went into that man's office and told them that we fucked over Leonardo DiCaprio, and that if they work with us, there'll be consequences. And so we got dropped by every single opportunity we had. And it didn't stop. It didn't ever stop. Toby Mcguire, did horrible things to people publicly who tried to support us or show any kind of support for us. It was just a vicious attack. And here's the interesting thing: as everything was leading up to it, one of the things that made that night with Toby so explosive was he got me to somehow I just put it out in the book, and it's a little too much to get into here, but he was able to coerce out of me that I had some issues with DiCaprio because DiCaprio was doing weird shit, like really weird shit. And like degrading humiliation shit. Humiliation, like public humiliation within our group of friends. It's really god awful shit. And it was really bothering me. And Toby too was also doing really weird, like I'm gonna dominate you kind of stuff. And it came up in our one-on-one at Bothell Arts that night. And I voiced my opinion about it. I said, like, man, Leo's tripping me out with the shit he's doing. And I'll share with you one of the stories. I don't want to reveal them all because the book is, it's too much to cover, frankly.
Right. Okay.
And I wouldn't mind selling a couple books if I could.
Right.
But yeah, they were doing really weird shit, and I brought it up. And at some point in our meeting, or in our one-on-one, me and Toby says, man, it sounds like you hate DiCaprio. And I was like, no, man, I don't understand what's going on. Like there was, and so if you want me to get into that moment, I can.
Yeah. What is the thing you said you'll share one of the,
so the thing I'll share is the kind of thing I'm sort of comfortable coming out with in public. And the first time I came out with this story, by the way, obviously I spent 4 years writing the book. So, but it just happened. I literally did this other YouTube channel to kind of announce the book. I recorded it just days before Diddy was arrested. So, and this was the topic on that podcast. And the guy was like, holy shit, I can't believe the connection, particularly with Leo and Diddy, apparently at least being friends. So it's Christmas Day. I'm sad. It's my second Christmas in a row that I didn't make it home. Christmas was like, I had a rough life. I love my father. He was an abusive guy, real abusive guy, but I don't know what it is about loving people who hurt you, loving bigots. I don't know, but I love him. He's my dad,
Right.
And I love my mom and I love my brother. And I wasn't home for Christmas for the second time, only the second time in my life and the second time in a row. Because if I leave the country, right, I might not get back in. So right. I couldn't go home, and it was very sad. So I had a sad day. I called my mom, and that was sad. I was just kind of lugging around. Then suddenly friends started to accumulate, and we started having a good time. We went to Jerry's Deli. We partied there, and we got back to the condo where I was living with Artie Rubb. And there's a crowd of people, 6, 7, 8 people. I don't know, whatever it was. We was a small crowd, sort of Christmas orphans, Leonardo DiCaprio among them. And also among them was a television star who I have named Emily Foster. I've redacted her name for reasons forthcoming. Anyway, we're all partying, whatever, having a good time. I'm downstairs smoking a cigarette, and I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys came down. They're like, dude, you got to see this. Something's happening in your room with Leo. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, Emily Foster's getting off in your room. And I'm like, what do you mean? Is he her? And he's like, no, you got to just see the shit. So he drags me. I go walking up the stairs, and there's like a crowd of people outside my bedroom. There's a landing that separates 2 bedrooms. Here's a doorway to mine. Here's a doorway to Artie Robb's room. And then there's this landing. And on that landing are about, I don't know, a group of people, whatever, 5, 6, 7 people. And they're gawking inside. And so I look around and I see Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's on his knees, and he's at the side of my bed, and Emily Foster is laid out on my bed, and she's naked and he's whispering in her ear, and everybody is watching her. Now, let me tell you something. Emily Foster was not an exhibitionist. Emily Foster was infatuated with Leo. She was also one of the biggest TV stars in the world at that time. Household name. If I dropped her name right now, I think everybody would know who she is. And I think, sadly, people would would probably change their opinion of her in some way, or that it would affect in some way their opinion of her. And that's disturbing to me because the focus is really on Leo in this situation, because he had no interest in her. We had discussions about it because I thought it was shitty from him, right? Previous to this, and so did others. I witnessed these conversations where we're like, Leo, dude, you're leading her on. He's like, no, we're not. We're just friends. And I'm like, bro, you're playing. This is bullshit. And then it culminates really on this night, Christmas night, where he literally coerced this woman into this humiliating act in front of everybody. It changed everybody's opinion of her, obviously. And to boot, in the corner, Scientologist Ethan Suplee, in the corner of my bedroom, with a camcorder recording the whole damn thing. So he's got this television star whose life, and I don't know if you remember the climate in the 90s, but in the 90s, dude, people talk about cancel culture today. People get away with everything today compared to back then. If you got outed for something, it was the only news they got. There was no internet. Things didn't spread like wildfire. They were controlled by the press. And if the press decided to take you and your story, you're done. And if a tape came out back then, you remember these tapes? It literally changed lives. So he was putting at risk this person's entire career, her entire fortune that she had spent, an enormous amount of her time and creative self to achieve. And all of that now is in jeopardy because Ethan Suplee has this compromise on this tape that it's just interesting that he recorded it in the first place. And what's even more interesting than that is this dispute leads to a litigation, right? We end up in this big giant lawsuit and we do these depositions. And during the deposition, we asked for discovery, right? You're familiar with that term?
Yeah.
Right. So discovery is when we go and we find out what they have, what evidence they have that can either prove or disprove our story. And they're supposed to, by subpoena, provide that for us during the lawsuit. So we subpoenaed that tape. Now, the reason we subpoenaed that tape wasn't because we wanted the Emily Foster footage. It was because we know, or we believe, that we spoke about Don's Plum and Leonardo DiCaprio tried to assert legally that we were keeping secrets about it. We never did. We keep a feature film secret. Ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life from the people who are in it. It was the most stupidest thing I ever heard. But we thought that that Ethan, who was recording throughout the night, that there would be proof on that tape.
Right.
That we would be talking about Don's Plum, that Leo would have talked about Don's Plum. But the tape also contained this footage of Emily Foster. And so Ethan lost it in the deposition and he threatened to burn the evidence. To be fair, full disclosure, he thinks it's photographs. I'm absolutely certain it wasn't, for two reasons. The first and foremost is that Leonardo DiCaprio would have never let Ethan Suplee take photographs on film of that night. No way. He would have never let Ethan Suplee take that roll of film, right? There were no digital cameras in 1995. He would have taken that roll of film to the CVS, right? To the photo mat, right? Leo's not going to let his career whispering again into a famous woman's ears while she's clearly for the camera. He's not going to let that go to photomat. There's just no way. So I know it's video because it would be controlled under these situations. And the other thing is I saw it. I feel confident that my memory is correct and it was videotape. So it was a disturbing night. And what was even more disturbing is that when he was threatening to throw that evidence away years later during the deposition, it occurred to me, holy shit, you still have it.
Right.
You still have it. Why would you still have that? They're best friends. If I had compromise on you and you're my best friend, first of all, I would imagine you're going to ask me to get rid of it. Probably.
Right.
But if you don't, why wouldn't I? Anyway, maybe he forgot that he had, a tape with the biggest movie star in the world on it. Possibly.
Maybe.
So that's the story that leads to that story. And that was the particular one that was most disturbing to me when I was talking to Toby that night, right? I was like, why did he do that? What is that about? It wasn't to get off himself. It wasn't to get me off, right? Why would he do that? And I said, I think it was because he wanted to humiliate her for some reason. And I think that reason is misogyny. That's my personal opinion. But I just think he's a misogynist. And so, when the Diddy thing broke.
Right.
And everyone's talking about this idea that Leo might be exposed to Diddy's humiliations and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't know about that, dude. Because Leo's been rolling with this shit since before Diddy. So Maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. Could have been Leo going in, dude.
Well, I mean, who knows what compromising tapes they have on him?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that that somebody knows, but we don't. And we know that Leo was at the white parties. So just when people are putting that connection together, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'll say this about it, right? Like maybe he had nothing to do with it, but it'd be very easy to believe for me that he would have participated as a viewer in a minute. He was an exhibitionist, and he was also somebody who like literally would put somebody through humiliation for his own amusement.
So at what point did you get to a point where you sued?
Well, we wanted to, I won't say we, but David Stubman, who was the producer who owned the copyright at the time, he wanted to sue right away, but no lawyer would take our case and we had no money. So it wasn't until after Titanic hit and all the lawyers that he visited and tried to convince to take on the case, those lawyers started calling him now. And then we ended up landing Burt Fields, who was at the time the biggest and most feared litigator in all of Hollywood, representing guys like Michael Jackson. And he thought, Burt Fields said he was going to be the big powerhouse that he was. He was going to flex his muscles. Leo was going to go, oh my God, I can't do this. And then we were going to end up in a settlement that would, behoove us all or benefit us all. And that didn't happen. Leo dug in instead. And that was a bit of a shock for Burt Fields. What? Leo dug in instead. He did not settle. Not right away. It took years.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's so funny. Like I filed suit against
an actor, right?
Against who?
Did you sue an actor?
No, I sued Warner Brothers and Ephraim Deveroli, which is a guy I wrote his memoir. Ephraim Deveroli is played by Jonah Hill in the movie War Dogs.
Oh, okay.
So I sued over the movie, and I sued Incarcerated Entertainment, which is the production company that Deveroli had started. So I sued them, and it's so funny to me because, the amount of money that they spent on litigating is 10 times what I would have settled for. It's like I was incarcerated when I started. Had they come to me and said, listen, we'll give you whatever, $20,000, $30,000 right now to go away, I would have been thrilled.
Yeah.
But instead, everybody dug in. It's like, you're going to spend $500,000 fighting over what could have gone away for a few $1,000s. Just stupidity. So these people that are like, oh, it's a nuisance lawsuit. Hollywood will settle because they don't want to spend the legal fees. Well, you're wrong about that. They'll blow $500,000 before they'll pay you a penny.
They don't fucking care about money. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Leo spent $1 million on our lawsuit. He dug in for $1 million. And we went through 2 lawyers because our lawyer, Burt Fields, the big powerful guy, when Leo didn't bend, he kicked us to the curb like a jerk off. And so we lost the biggest lawyer in the world, and we were like empty pockets and no lawyer in the middle of a lawsuit with the biggest star in the world. So we ended up landing another attorney that eventually led to a settlement conference and where a so-called settlement took place. But it was all under duress, and they don't care about money. And in the end, we ended up footing the bill. The movie ended up footing the bill anyway, because part of the settlement was that we were going to pay all the legal fees. So we ended up, it's a long, terrible story about how they never stopped destroying this movie, dude. They never stopped. And it was all out of spite. It was all to destroy me and R.D. Rob. It became this like spite, this evil, horrible spite. And it worked, bro. My life has been shit for a long time, dude. Like, it was very difficult for me. In fact, it wasn't until I wrote this book that I realized I could do anything else and love it. Like I wrote this book and I was like, holy shit, I love this. Because I'd never written a book before. I'd written short stories, poems, lyrics, and screenplays, but never a book. And it just opened up a world of creativity that I'd never experienced before. So prior to the book, film was all I ever wanted. Film was all I ever knew. Experimental film, especially, which is the hardest film to make because there's no real promise of box office at the end of it. So you've got to kind of be beloved And to be beloved, you got to have a really special movie come out. That was Don's Plum. Don's Plum was going to open up that for me for sure, because it was not just an awesome experiment that went right, but it was also the fact that the process that we began was a process that was exciting for so many filmmakers experimentally. Like it really was something special, like that we could grow with. And it was accidental. Do you know who Jackson Pollock is?
Yeah, of course.
Very famous painter. And you know that whole, like, he spilled the paint.
Yeah.
We spilled the paint. That's what happened. You know, we spilled the paint and we were like, holy fuck, this works. We can do something with this. And so the masterpiece was supposed to come later, right? This was just our beginning, but it was a special beginning that had, really special performances. And, like I said, just an experiment that just went totally right. So yeah, I mean, it's a wild thing to have to deal with the kind of abuse of power that I've had to deal with for decades, and that it became so personal and so horrible. I did this New York Post documentary. The reason I wrote the book is because I did a New York Post documentary, and at the end of it, Leo, through his publicist, made a statement, and in the statement he called me a liar, and he said that I was using this story to gain publicity and to unlawfully earn money from Don's Plum, the movie I wrote and produced. And my God, dude, I got so mad. Like, I was just like, holy fuck. And I didn't know, like, how does a little me who screams from rooftops and barely gets heard battle a guy like that who now just disparaged me in a way that's irreparably harmful? I mean, people who listen to him and believe him, right? I got emails right away. Why do you respond to the fact that you're a liar and that you're stealing from Don's Plum? So I was like, well, fuck, I got to answer this, man. And it took me a year to figure it out. My inclination was to write a book, but I didn't have the courage, man. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, man, I just got to suck it up and I got to do it. And so this book, and I'll hold it up just because I think it's kind of neat, because it's this. He said, Dale's a liar. And I said, that's my response.
What's the on the cover? What's the cover?
Oh, the cover is me wearing my Miramax hat. Because they were going to buy my damn movie. But it's just a picture from me in the 90s, chilling out, about to be somebody people knew in the industry, just about to make it, man. It's a beautiful time, bro. Like, I did it. Like, I don't know, for anyone out there and I got to tell you, man, I don't regret that. Like, if I were to go back, I would not make Don's Plum. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I would obviously hope that it would turn out differently in terms of the way the dispute went down, but man, I don't regret any of the pursuit. But anyway, after Leo called me a liar in that New York Post documentary, and by the way, like, this whole thing got reignited in 2014. I had laid completely quiet about everything. I just shut up and I wanted it to go away, right? And so I did my time. Right? I went and did the sales jobs, and I lived a mundane life, and I let my dreams stay in the shadows, and I waited for the dust to settle, and I knew that it would take a long time, and I did 10, 13, 14 years of silence on it, right? I did nothing. And then I went back to Hollywood. I left my wife because that shit just ended. And at that point, I was like, it's time to go back. And I went back at 40 years old, 2010, for a second round, if you will. And I reunited with Artie Robb. And I'd been working on this thing for years, this story that I love so much, fiction, and I met this girl who's my wife now and who saved my life. I met her and she found out about all this, and she was like, I want to read your stuff. And so I showed her the story, and she fell in love with it. It's a kind of a weird psychological, almost supernatural love story, but it's like, it's cool. It's like this really highly, it'll be controversial if I ever get it made, but it'll be very spiritually interesting. And anyway, she just loved it. And she was like, I know this producer, and he was like a giant in the business, like huge, like bigger than Leo, in my opinion, like bigger than Leo. She's like, I know him. Let me just see what he thinks. And I was like, okay, fuck yeah. I think quite like that, as the book will reveal, but more or less some in substance. And so he loved it. He loved it. He was like, this is a great idea. And this guy who's now this multi-billion-dollar producer, he got his roots doing the very same thing I did, which was just, slugging it out with $100,000, $200,000, trying to make something beautiful happen. So he loved this. And this movie would have taken $1.5 million, like not a lot of money to make. He was in. And then he found out who I was. 2014 at this point. 2014, almost 20 full years after I made that movie. He was like, who's that? Oh, he made that. I can't work with canceled me there on the spot. 44 years old, man. You know, I shot Don's Plum when I was 25, you know? And that's when I was like, fuck, I got to do something, dude. Because at that point, this was the first time where I had a concrete thought. Maybe it's time to check out. Maybe it's time to get out of this thing. You know? Maybe it's just a life gone bad, you know? Just a bruise that's spread into a rotten core, you know?
You mean Hollywood or you mean life?
Life, buddy. Life.
Okay.
Yeah. I already checked out of Hollywood. I moved to Jersey.
Yeah.
I got away. I was out of sight, out of mind.
Came back, and you said you left. You came back, and the second time you came back, you said, "Yeah, that's it." I mean, these guys are
after that producer was like, psst, because of 1995, right? And Don's Plum, I was just like, man. And I got this beautiful girl, but man, like, and it was like such a serious moment. Like, it wasn't like a fuck my life. It was like I gotta go. So like, you know, fighting through that was really difficult for me. Like I was like, oh, fuck. But I just wanted out so bad. And then so I turned to my girl and I was like, man, I got to fight back or I got to go. Like I didn't say it to her, but I think she might've felt it. Like I was just like, I got to fight back. I got to do something. I can't just let this continue. I can't let this reputation follow me around that isn't just, and I can't allow these people to take so much of me and to take so much of what I've done and everything. I'm proud of my work. You know, I don't care if you hate my movie. I don't care. You know, I didn't make it for you. I want you to love it, but I don't care. I love it. And that matters. So I said, I got to do something. And I was like, I think I'm going to write an open letter to Dicaprio. This is 2014. And she was like, at first she was like, wow, it's a big deal. It's like, yeah. She's like, it could end up consuming us. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to do something, man. And cause my life is slipping away from me. And, she did it, man. She was like, okay. So I wrote the letter in 2014 and it blew up, in 2016, after The Revenant. Nobody paid any attention to it. It was the most embarrassing thing ever. I was like, in my head, right? I got the biggest star in the world. I'm going to write this open letter. Everyone's going to care. Fucking nobody cared, buddy. Like, it's like, oh my God. Wrote the open letter in 2014. And it was then that I made the commitment that I was going to fight Leonardo DiCaprio. Hell, bro. That guy's got a Mike Tyson punch, you know? But I was like, man, I'm just going to fight this guy from where I am. And I've been doing it for 10 years. And the book is really like the sort of the pinnacle of it all. I think it's really probably will be my most emphatic statement about it. And I'm really proud of the book. And I'm proud of standing up against such a fucking shitty human being. You know, and just to the fans of Leonardo DiCaprio, I loved his work. I did. And I believe in a separation between the art and the man, you know, the art and the artist. I have Eric Clapton records on my shelf, and I think very little of that man. I have Van Morrison records on my shelf. That guy's fucking kookier than anybody I've ever known. Do I put those records on my placard? You're right, I do, because I love the music, man. So, you know, this isn't about, I don't want Leonardo DiCaprio canceled, and I don't want any of his movies not to be seen. I want my movie to be seen. And I want all the people that worked on those movies to be rewarded, because that's a lot about what I'm talking about, Matt, is like, these guys didn't just take my movie away. I'm here today representing it as my movie. 150 people worked on that movie. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio was one of 8 ensemble cast members, 7 of which, before Toby hit, could have used the work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was the only one who was doing well. Everybody, and he was there as a favor to us all, which is the, I guess, bitter irony of it. That's my story, buddy. I'm sticking to it.
Well, how do you feel about this interview? Is there anything else you want to talk about, or anything else you want to add? Or
yeah, I mean, here's what the only thing I'd like to definitely let your viewers know is that they can watch the movie and read the book for free. It's a fascinating story, and it's told in an artful and entertaining way. I you know, this message is obviously very important to me. I spent 10 years working on getting it out, and it's because there's a lot more inside of me to come, and I'm putting. So I put my heart and soul in this book, and you can get it for free on Kindle Unlimited right now. You can also buy the paperback there or the ebook if that's your preference, but you can read it for nothing, and you can also watch the film for free at freedonsplum.com. I do send out HD links. I send them out because Leo and Toby have taken down the HD copies of the film. they let the really bad copies go, but they stop the good copies. So I only set up private links for now. But no, I don't really have much else to say except thanks so much, man. I hope the story was entertaining for you guys. And I hope people, learn a little bit from it.
So how do people get the links?
Yeah, you email, or just go to freedomsplum.com, just put in your email address. You'll get an automatic kickback for the link. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can just hit, there's an email address there. If you want to chat with me, you're welcome to do that. But yeah, that's it. That's how you get that link. And then you can go to Amazon to get the book. Or really, I think any online retailer probably is carrying it in paperback. But for ebook, or for Kindle Unlimited, that's exclusively on Amazon. Just look up Too Real.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Share the video, leave me a comment. And if you check in the description box, I'm going to leave all of Dale's links. Please consider joining Colby and I's Patreon. It's $10 a month. We put Patreon exclusive stuff on the Patreon platform without any censorship or anything like that. And there's also a lot of exclusive stuff that's behind the scenes stuff that we talk about prior to doing the interviews. So I really appreciate you guys watching. Check in the description box for those links. Thank you very much. See ya.